2020 changed the world, especially the way we work and do business. And while all industries experienced upheaval at some level, one thing every company realized was the pace of change within the sales organization was only going to accelerate, meaning drastic improvements were necessary to keep up. Trends like the digital transformation boom will continue to gain momentum in 2021 as more and more organizations invest in automated digital solutions in order to adapt to this new selling world. We wanted to share some of the lessons we learned in 2020 and how we're planning on bringing those into 2021 and beyond in order to transform obstacles into opportunities.
So many of our customers had spent most of the end of 2019 really planning for 2020. What were their goals? What were their priorities? And then mid-March, that all came to a screeching halt. And it came with very little notice. I think this really was the biggest impact on our customers, that they had to react to that change, and they had to do it in an environment that they weren't necessarily comfortable with. All of their employees working remotely, all of their customers also working remotely, their vendors working remotely. So I really think the impact of that change was the same for all of our customers and their need to react to a change that really they hadn't planned for.
From my perspective, it really was not being able to get that face time with clients in person. I've been a seller for 20, 25 years now, and to have that interaction and get cues and pick up kind of things, body language, if you will, of your prospect or your customer is very important to me. But one of the things that I was happy about is that, with all of the tools that we have at Xactly, we were able to pivot and make Zoom work in a lot of ways and close a good amount of business. So with that, I think the disruption really was around not being able to travel, not being able to meet clients in person, not be able to get that personal touch, but we were able to overcome that disruption really based on the fact that we incorporated technology very quickly and put it to good use.
2020 taught us how strong and powerful our communities can truly be. Much like in our personal lives, our Canidium community really banded together in 2020. We have several practices here at Canidium, both serving the SPM and CPQ spaces. We were able to identify team members that were able to cross-train between those practices so that we could learn new technologies and grow from within, all the while being prepared to serve our customers in 2021. We were also able to be agile and nimble when our customers came to us in 2020 based upon a need. And that need was all built around those changes that were influencing their business in 2020. So we were able to make quick plan changes. We were able to identify modifications to what the plan design should be, and reporting, dashboards, all those things that go along with this space to be able to adjust quickly as their world continued to change. So we are very proud and very honored to be part of our customer ecosystem so that we can continue to serve our clients. And we look forward to 2021, where we can expand that knowledge that we've developed, all invested in 2020, so that we can serve you the best. And again, we are strong and we are ready and very willing to continue to serve our customers in this way.
Hi, my name is Roberson, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Intangent. The greatest lesson that we learned in 2020 was that a traditional approach to sales operations is not something that's working. We've invested billions of dollars every year in that traditional approach to sales operations, and leaders of revenue have honed a host of specialized roles to address specific parts of the buying cycle. You think about digital marketers, ADRs, SDRs, AEs, industry specialists, product specialists, renewal specialists, customer account managers, the list goes on. And they've invested in those specialized roles as well as the specialized technology to support each member of their team. But capturing the revenue potential of what happens when sales and marketing customer success work together is something that's largely unrealized because roles aren't coordinated across those three teams, and neither is the technology. And it's not that reps don't want to hit quota. They do. They want to hit quota in their personal income goals. But we've learned that sales operations is leaving them starved of information about what to do and when. And that's why sales reps' time remains one of the biggest lazy assets in business. And the culprits are poor enablement coupled with poor coordination of specialized roles and technology. And ultimately, that lack of efficiency across the three teams we're talking about, sales, marketing, and customer success, dilutes the results from the billions that they've invested in sales operations and keeps them from maximizing their revenue capture life cycle. And so what we've learned is that what's now needed is a true revenue operations approach that coordinates all functions, all roles, all technology across all three teams. And that's something that Aberdeen says when happens can up to triple revenue.
I think I've really learned how to say, actually I learned never to say it can't get any worse. I mean, that's something I just took out of my vocabulary, quite frankly. And I'd say I really learned, that we're all more connected, not just as a company, not just as a country, but as a planet. We're all connected, and we all went through this unprecedented time together. And I think it's a time in history that's just going to be something that everyone is going to learn from. I mean, I think obviously there was a lot of just devastation and terrible things that went on in 2020, but I think the fact that you needed to just be present and be still, be patient, but be resilient, and also just give yourself some grace. And I think that's something that a lot of people were able to hone in on. And I hope that we all can collectively move forward after this pandemic and just be more connected as a planet. And I think that was a few of the lessons that I learned from 2020.
Our biggest opportunity in 2021 is to help revenue leaders come together to understand that sales performance management connects the dots of revenue operations and allows marketing, sales, and customer success leaders to be aligned together and also make it clear to their teams about what their targets are, what areas they cover, and what's expected of them. Basically, help them understand the basics. And the way that we see that breaking out into three building blocks is through three different steps. The first is orchestration, and this is many that revenue leaders overlook. And that's creating orchestration with territory and quota management and forecasting capabilities so that all the pieces are in place from a sales planning perspective for effective management to occur. And that first building block then enables the second and the third. The second is motivation, which is what makes performance expectations clear and helps reps and other revenue professionals like demand gen specialists or customer success managers spend more time doing revenue producing activity because they understand what they're supposed to do and how. And then the third pillar is incentives. This aligns orchestration and motivation, the first two pillars, and it drives company objectives by directly correlating how someone behaves, with how they're paid. And what's I think exciting about this opportunity for us is what Gartner says its revenue potential represents, which is that when revenue executives use these three building blocks, they can unlock 10% or more in annual sales.
I think that in 2021, our customers can grow on what they've learned in 2020. So throughout 2020, customers have really had to look at their business processes and their policies and how they get things done. And they've had to change them to accommodate for the new, primarily remote working situation. And in many ways, that's a good thing. In many ways, 2020 required a different amount of communication, a different way to communicate, a different way to report on things, to think about things. And we can just grow on that. So we can take all of the lessons learned in 2020 and capitalize on them in 2021, make them better, and hopefully without the constraints that we have in 2020. So it can only get better.
I think digital transformation, it's no longer a buzzword. I mean, it's table stakes nowadays. And I think I heard someone say before, what was the cause for your digital transformation? And it was the pandemic. I'm not happy that the pandemic caused organizations to digitally transform their business, but I think it was just a real big eye-opener, especially in this enterprise space, that organizations figured that they need to be more agile and they need solutions that can connect with some of these, I'd say, solutions like mission critical solutions like their ERP or their HCM solution that are never going to go away. But if they can push and pull data back and forth and become a little bit more nimble, I think that's a total game changer. And I think digital transformation now, organizations know that if they just started that journey, they're way behind the 8 ball. And I think that it's causing that, I'd say, compelling event. And I'm really looking forward to being able to support organizations that need that help.
Everyone has goals and priorities, and we create plans to reach those priorities. And I think what 2020 has taught us that you have to be ready for change. And digital transformation helped us do that. It helped us understand where the risk is, where changes need to happen, so that we could continue to strive towards our goals. Going back to the status quo of 2019 is not going to work. We understand that we need to be able to move quickly. And 2021 digital transformation is going to help us do that. We can grow on what we learned in 2020.
Incentive compensation management, comp payouts, commissions, variable pay, whatever you call it, this is the core to your sales organization and your biggest driver of revenue. Of all the parts in your sales org, this is the most common place to start when it comes to optimizing and learning from what didn't work in the past. So let's break this down a little more. What has 2020 taught us when it comes to paying our people?
My best advice for comp management success in 2021 is to take some time to recover from 2020. 2020 was a very unique year in business and likely exposed some challenges and gotchas in your comp process. Now's the time to review and fix those gotchas as a way to be proactive for 2021. And don't forget to share your goals with your Xactly team. We're here to help. I think as we look back on 2020, we recognize that despite the challenges of the year, the job market for sales reps remains strong. Yet, your regular company touchpoints, your company culture, and circumstances may have changed. In order to ensure that you retain your best sales talent, now's the time to reflect on attainment and performance and other indicators like sales rep engagement to course correct as needed. Yes, 2020 will always be a representation of how we adjusted during a difficult time. Data from 2020, specifically data about how the disruption of the year was handled, is critical for the management of change in the future.
And what about sales planning? Like incentive comp, having the right data to guide planning and decision making is, I'd say, pretty essential. Your quotas need to be realistic, yet aggressive enough to meet your goals, with the expectation that not every rep will hit their number. Territory designs need to be able to target the right areas and assign the best reps to each area. But how do you determine that without the right solutions? 2020 threw everyone for a loop, and we realized we could no longer create static sales plans. Instead, they needed to be continuously updated and optimized.
So quotas remain largely unchanged this year. We still expected strong growth for the fiscal year, and while top of funnel growth certainly slowed, we still had a healthy pipeline, and it was really important for us to give our sellers a great chance to earn, achieve their quotas, and have a real shot at things like President's Club. So while we did talk about things like quota reductions and other things that could be done, what we ultimately decided to do was add a kicker to each deal won, so the sellers would earn more commission and retire more quota than their original plan dictated. For territories, we consistently leverage the line star to ensure proper coverage to address things like attrition or performance management throughout the year. I think we've also continued to improve leveraging cohort data like ARR growth across different regions, ideal customer profiles, or CAPTB as we call it here in the Vista world, and total addressable market to make those decisions. We've also been able to glean some really valuable insights, and I think we'll be leveraging those insights from this year's changes to continue to optimize the go-to-market and coverage strategy throughout 2021 and beyond. You need a wealth of connected data to improve outcomes in these areas. For territories, we certainly go well beyond zip codes and number of accounts. It's also really important for us to understand historical performance, total addressable market as it relates to cross-sell, upsell potential in your install base, or just the greenfield potential of your prospect accounts. Also, firmographic data that helps us understand propensity to buy. And for those sellers in the field, what is their drive time, right? On the quota side, it's a constant evaluation of the quota's effectiveness. So it's critical to have data, things like effective ramp times, attrition rates, a real pipeline that exists right now, and conversion rates at different stages of that pipeline, to ensure that you're always aligning quotas to sellers' earning potential to keep them properly motivated and ultimately to the company's growth targets. I truly believe that the number one thing any team needs anywhere at any time for success is to put top talent in the right places. Assuming you've got that, I think what sales ops teams need for a successful 2021 is an enriched set of performance data at their disposal that they can then analyze and derive insights from, so as to understand where process or strategy improvements need to be made or can be made. And then in which of those areas does it make sense for us to place our bets? Which of those areas is going to yield the greatest improvement over what we've been doing or over the status quo?
Now, let's talk operationalizing it all. In every organization, sales planning and management occur at various levels to create quotas, territories, and incentives. But together, these become your sales strategy and your game plan to chase and close deals. They must be aligned and designed cohesively in order to be successful.
The impact 2020 brought to many sales and sales ops leaders was resounding, and it mainly came from the need to adjust quickly to changes and the unknowns that were being thrown at their selling world. Sales plans that took 3 months to create, well, they're now in the trash. I heard a lot of things from customers, but two that really stood out for me were focused on those upstream of compensation activities around quota, capacity, and territory. Customers said things like, I need to make changes quickly and with confidence, but I just don't have the access to the actual data on the sales teams that I need. Another one was, once I have a new plan, no matter really how I came up to that plan, I just don't have the systems or technology to deploy it at speed and then validate that I make the right decisions and even if I need to adjust again. Really what this meant was the old way of how we used to do sales plans once a year and then revisit them again in the following year, it just doesn't work anymore. The new market conditions have pushed customers into what, frankly, many top performing companies have been doing for some time, and that's shifting to a mindset of continuous sales planning. Those companies that have connected things like their sales planning and operational sales management activities to their downstream activities of sales comp have really created an environment where they can recognize a need for change, they can plan and model and adapt and make those adjustments to that. They can see what the impact's going to be and then deploy those new plans in weeks versus months. These companies really came out of this year with the best outcomes. It's that operational agility that creates a sales performance ecosystem that'll drive the biggest success for these customers in 21.
A lot of my customers were really challenged in 2020 or took it as an opportunity. But even if they had their black swan models for how to address or shift in 2020, it didn't change the importance of looking at the downstream impact. And what is my capacity of the team? Do I hold tight? Do I expand? What does that do to people's quotas? Is this a short-term fix or a long-term fix? And very often everyone thought it was short-term, so maybe they band-aided some things. But ultimately, being able to look at those short and long-term impacts, being able to continuously monitor and adjust was the most important thing that I heard going into 2021 they wanted to plan for. Very often the organizations looked at not adjusting those quotas and just doing a credit on the plan. But what are those impacts downstream and to your financial models, being able to pivot?
So what I believe the key to being successful in managing the changes throughout the year and heading into 2021 is the ability to foster the collaboration between cross-functional teams between finance, HR, operations, and sales in order to have a clear picture on how well the business is performing and how to best manage and adapt to the needs in terms of retuning and the refinements that are needed. Given the current situation is constantly developing and evolving, the ability to remain agile through the adoption of integrated and automated tools to then streamline existing business processes will be critical to ensure that the processes are being managed and administered as effectively as possible. Then allowing the key constituents to be notified early and often will be crucial, as the insights on how the business is operating and the decisions needed to be made can be only facilitated as those insights are available in order for the corrective actions to be taken proactively as opposed to reactive under the current landscape. As I mentioned before, what was evident was that there wasn't the collaboration and integration between the tools and solutions within the technology ecosystem to then easily deliver the data from an HR, sales, and finance perspective in order for operations to be agile and redefining their plans to then determine the impact of those changes and what they may have on targets and quotas as the landscape was constantly evolving. So in order to address these issues and challenges, there needs to be the technology that combines all that required data in terms of how the business is operating, and to then deliver those insights to the operations teams in order to able to adapt to the market and business trends in an agile and collaborative fashion to then operationalize these changes in an effective fashion.
The data that was needed, really, if you start thinking about downstream or even upstream processes to be able to do those various models, is really always the people, the different accounts or businesses that you're targeting, the existing business that you have, the white space you're targeting, and then being able to blend that with pipeline forecasts and historical data to better assess the various scenarios. We all know that it was really hard to have historical scenarios to predict 2020, but when you have the ability to run those different models and do those different what-if scenarios quickly based on the people and the accounts that you have in place today, it makes it so much easier to make some predictions and be able to pivot. So I find that those are the most critical.
To adjust to market changes, either small changes like competitive landscape or big changes, well, like 2020, you must have actionable data. It's really critical for any kind of quality decision making that you're going to do. Most have access to core data, information like reps' territory or their geographical location or assignments and their roles, customer data, historical spend, even their location and or potential white space. Some can sprinkle in information like TAM data or industry-specific intelligence that they may be able to pull. Moving past this, though, pretty much everybody has information like reps' performance to plan, their average deal size, deal type, quantity, and so on. Even maybe their tenure or the overlays or support structure that they have, that core information about a team structure and their overall performance in the past year. Typically, though, the gap is really that the data is just that. It's just data. It's raw. It resides in disparate locations throughout an organization, and frankly, it's a lot of times more often than not in spreadsheets. Pulling this together into a cohesive, actionable data set that drives discussions about everything from my capacity, do I have enough sellers to get to my goal, the impact that change will have on my commission expenses in the coming year, or even impact to the seller's performance. This is where most lack the solution to really address these changing market conditions effectively and at speed. And honestly, my guess is it's going to have a big impact on them in 21.
Change. You have to make sure there's buy-in. And so whether I speak from being a sales leader myself or an individual salesperson receiving the goals, either way, it needs to be collaborative. So ideally, you want to have kind of that marriage between the top down and the bottom up, collaboration to gain confidence in the change, being able to understand how to achieve and exceed is key to acceptance, because people want to be recognized. They want to be able to achieve the goals that are set out. So if they understand how to do that, that helps drive that motivation in new goals and programs. I'm a strong believer continuously is the important thing, not just one and done. The regular reinforcement at how to enable and inspire your team to achieve excellence is needed to happen on a regular basis.
In terms of the organizations I had the opportunity to interact and engage with last year, was how many of them really struggled with their ability to manage the business because of what was happening across the globe. Because of these events, there was a lot of uncertainty and questions being raised caused by these disruptions and how their businesses were being challenged and struggled. This may have resulted in the shrinking of revenues and the strain due to the competitive market landscape, but there were specific challenges that the operations teams were tasked with when how to best manage the business and adapt throughout last year. Any of the plans that were established at the beginning of 2020 was quickly rendered stale or out of date, thus operations teams were constantly struggling to update their models, especially when managed within manual Excel solutions. Now, there wasn't clear sight or visibility in terms of the qualitative impact in terms of the targets and quotas and what they should be, but because of unfortunate changes to their sales forces and how their territories are changing because of organizational realignments. What was evident though was that there wasn't the collaboration and the integration between the tools and solutions within their technology ecosystem to then easily deliver the data from an HR, sales, and a management perspective in order for operations to be agile in redefining the plans and then be able to determine what the impact it may have on targets and quotas as the landscape was constantly evolving. In terms of how to best address these issues and challenges in 2021, there needs to be the appropriate set of technology that combines all of the required data in terms of how to best manage the business and how to then deliver those insights to the operations team in order to be able to adapt to the market and the business trends in an agile, collaborative, but also the ability to then operationalize this in an effective fashion.
Over my career in sales, one of the biggest challenges I've seen with companies, it's always been around seller engagement. How do you build trust within a sales team? As an example, this time of year, you get to that point where sales plans are being rolled out. There's always this buzz within the team. Sometimes it creates apprehension. What's going to be the impact to me? Will my goal or plan be achievable this year? What will my account list look like? Will so-and-so get more than me? The list really goes on. This is tough to overcome, but those companies that seem to really perform best, in my opinion, are those that are transparent. When you give a seller a quota, how did you arrive at that number? What was the logic that was used? If the territory is changing, why? Particularly if it shrank. Did the team all land with the same addressable market and volume of business? The same holds true for comp. And when sellers begin to see that, you're being honest and fair, they tend to do a better job. Retention increases. They're more likely to be motivated and participate candidly and fairly to any of the changes in these processes. To me, this really, if you can build good, solid trust within your team, it tees you up for good and bad years and the changes that lie ahead of any sales team.
Personally, I'm looking forward to, my kids, they're going to go back to school. I've got a middle schooler and I've got a freshman in high school. So they're going to start going back to classes in intermittent style, spaced out, wearing masks. So I'm excited about that, especially for my high schooler because she's a freshman. So she'll have the chance to interact with her peers in the 9th grade, which she hasn't been able to do since the first of the year. And then she'll be able to meet her teachers quite literally for the first time in person, which is great. And then lastly, what I'll say is I won't have to help her with her homework anymore, especially algebra. Algebra, still a challenge for me at my age that it was when I took it in the 9th grade. So I'm happy that she will be going back to all of her honors classes along with my son and his honors classes in the middle school. And they'll be able to get out of the house and Fortnite won't be played by my middle schooler. My daughter will be able to interact with all of her peers and her teachers. So, I'm looking forward to a robust 2021. I think we're positioned to be wildly successful. And I look forward to working with this team, which is just incredible here at Xactly, to help achieve that success. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to say all of this and to be part of this project, and I look forward to a robust 2021. Thanks all.
2021 has me excited for time, travel, and transformation. Time with my family, both immediate and extended, travel with trips to Europe and the Caribbean already in the books, and transformation both personally and professionally, seeing my 2 boys transforming on a daily basis, as well as my continuous desire to improve as a trusted advisor and advocate to my customers.
I'm excited for a time that's hopefully in the very near future where we can have more personal interaction. While I do believe that 2020 has forced us to look at our processes, be more efficient, be more productive, it is missing a personal element and the energy that comes around from personal interactions. So I really am excited for the time when we can get together as coworkers, as customers, as friends, as family, and really just experience the energy that comes with interacting with people. I do really miss that.
So, are you feeling inspired to transform in 2021, but not sure where to start? Xactly's here to help. You can find additional resources, or you can connect with one of our sales performance experts at xactlycorp.com.